But the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.
Art for art's sake is like gin for gin's sake, vodka for vodka's sake, etc. I've recently addressed the fact that part of my role here on YouTube is criticism. And I'm not ashamed of that. I don't apologize for that. I think that in the same way that we have to recognize the role of the critic in art, the role of the critic in cinema is important, the role of the critic in politics can be much more important.
So I had the YouTube video playing, and it was Mr. Aizul Mazard's latest video, and I'll put a link to it down below. And anyway, he said, and my ears pricked up, because he said something that I profoundly disagree with.
I've made this comparison before. If you look at some of the YouTube channels that are devoted to comic books, mainstream DC Comics, Marvel Comics, superhero comics, they really do have more of a community than veganism does in 2017. Really, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not. If you take a look, they have conferences, they have meetings, they buy airplane tickets, they do fundraisers, they have donations, they auction things off, and they raise the money to have a convention, and then people fly there. I think you can look at the Game of Thrones fan community. But yeah, sure, the comic books are a really good example. They have more elements of a real community than vegans ever have had and maybe ever will.
What is he talking about? What is he talking about? It's an unfair comparison, comparing like veganism to Game of Thrones or Marvel Comics or something like that. It's those things are like hugely popular. Veganism is it's a niche thing. It's a niche thing. Usually, it's like, would you compare veganism to football? Oh, football, we have a great sense of community, more so than veganism. Well, there's a surprise.
And you can look through the comments below their channels. You can look through their controversies. Sometimes those guys do have their own scandals, but not like this. And I don't see this level of, mean-spirited, vitriolic, ultimately just malicious infighting within those other digital demimons.
I think 90% of the people just don't care about, 90% of vegans don't care about YouTube, don't care about the stuff that's going on YouTube. Most of us find it mildly entertaining, and that's about it. But to say we don't have a community, come on, dude, come on. Like, in 2005, this was flipping 12 years ago, I rode a bicycle from Los Angeles to New York to raise money for animal sanctuaries and to raise the profile of veganism. It was called the Ride for Goals. And a couple of years later, after I got it all edited, the girl the lady who runs the London Vegan Festival, I was still living in England then, she called me up. She goes, "Oh, Patrick, we'd love to have your, we'd love to screen your film at the London Vegan Festival." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool." And I remember, I don't know, man, he talks about like, oh God, the community. That London Vegan Festival is massive. It's like thousands and thousands and thousands of people go to the London Vegan. It is rammed. It is rammed with people. It is hugely popular, and people come from all over the country in the UK to go to the London Vegan Festival. Not only that, there's like thousands and thousands of vegan festivals all over the world every year.
We have to question, shall we say, commercial but populist activities like this. All right, I don't really know the population of the greater Los Angeles area. I've been to Los Angeles. Where you draw the line around the city of Los Angeles is a very difficult question. Millions and millions of people go far beyond the limits of what is defined as Los Angeles. Okay, fine, I'll Google it. Greater LA population, maybe 20 million people. All right, so Los Angeles, you could call it 4 million, and apparently you could call it 19 or 20 million, depending on where you stop counting. At the LA county limits, at the suburban limits, so on and so forth. And they hold this event called Veg Fest, and they say on average, they get 5,000 people per year attending. They boast that in 2018, they had over 10,000 visitors. All right, the images you see on screen here are actually from the 2019 event. I have grave doubts that the real number of people attending is 10,000. I have grave doubts that the number of people who attended in 2019 at least was even 5,000 people. I don't think that's what I'm looking at here. I've had to deal with disputes like this all my life, even in the period I can barely remember before I became vegan. People can visualize what it looks like to have 50,000 people all in the same place at the same time. They can visualize what it looks like to have 10,000 people all together in the same place at the same time. And if you need to jog their memory, you can go to Google image search and look for examples of a stadium with 10,000 seats, an arena, a concert hall, an opera hall, a theater with 10,000 seats, and show them this is what it looks like when you have 10,000 people together in one place at one time. But when we're talking about political protests, conferences, events, it's very strange how in our culture people are so willing and so eager to lie to themselves and lie to others for a blatantly political purpose. You have to keep in mind there is a very real commercial incentive to lie about, exaggerate, or at least round up your estimate if you are operating, a festival of this kind and you're trying to get both donors and participating restaurants and businesses to support it. And that's fundamentally why social media is so important, as a reality check. Pro-Veg International, I'm sure they tell their donors that this event was a huge success. They say, we had people attend this conference from around the world. We had all of these wonderful speakers, and they delivered these important papers. This was a major conference. It's going to save the planet and save the animals. Thank you. Please keep on donating millions of dollars. And you know what? The bullshit stops here. The bullshit stops with the number of views you get on YouTube. I'm dead serious about that. And look, guys, I'm not on an ego trip. This applies to me both ways. When you look at how many views I had on that video, vegans were more hated than Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, it tells you something. I reached an audience with that. I said, hey, look, I have a message that really matters to me. I want to present my critique of what's wrong with vegan activism. In the year 2019, that was over 1 year ago. I don't know if it was 2018 or 2019. And 2,600 people got interested and were willing to listen. That means something. You know what else? It may mean that there isn't a very big audience for that message. That may be the maximum number attainable or possible because not very many people care. If you are putting on a well-funded, populist vegan festival in Los Angeles, and you could attract, a huge number of people, 4 million downtown, maybe 19 or 20 million in the greater Los Angeles area, and you're boasting that you attract 5,000 people. And when I look at the pictures, when I look at the film footage, I think, that looks like a really generous estimate to say that there were 5,000 people there. Okay? Maybe that tells you something about just how little interest there is in veganism in Los Angeles, whether you're at the ostensibly respectable academic button-up end of the spectrum, the moderately respectable populist, commercial, merchandising and food sales industry end of the spectrum, or if you're way over on the lunatic fringe with the people who are engaged in acts of sabotage and civil disobedience, going to prison, what have you.
Now, that seems to me like a bit of a communist, Anyway, so I remember I had like an auditorium. I had like an hour to screen my film, and Sea Shepherd were on before me, and that was before they had their like TV show and they were like really popular. But still, there was a lot of people in the auditorium, and they finished, and then it was me to screen my cycling film, right? And there was no one in the auditorium, and it was just me and my brother and a few friends, and So I put the film on, turned the lights out, and the film was like edited like a 40-minute edit because I thought, well, I'll do a Q&A, and then I thought, well, I shouldn't have done a 40-minute edit because there's no one to ask questions afterwards. And anyway, so the film finished, right? And then this like massive cheer went up, massive cheer. And I turned around and the whole flipping auditorium was full of people. Like, and I'm standing there. I'll put the picture up. I'm standing there on the bank of the river in New York, and it was just amazing. So don't bloody tell me there's no community, dude. Come on.
And I don't see this level of mean-spirited, vitriolic, ultimately just malicious infighting within those other digital demimons.
People say things online that they would never say to like a person's face if they met them in person, would they? People say awful things online. Awful things that they would never say. But here's a quick thing. One should always be polite all the time, especially online. I'll make a point of that.
Digital demimons,
I think it really is worthwhile to look across the table, look at what the guys in comic books have going on, and ask yourself, why can't we have that? And where's it going to start? Where more of a constructive attitude towards making the most out of what we got here in veganism in terms of human resources. Can it start with this? Can it start with you watching this video right now? Can it start with something you can do today or tomorrow, or sitting down with your calendar and looking ahead to the rest of this year? I don't know what the future of veganism is, but the future of veganism is not Doreen Ryder. It's not Vegan Cheetah. It's not a community built on slander and defamation and get skinny quick $35 ebooks.
Dude, what a bloody patronising thing to say. Really? Really? Thousands and thousands and thousands of vegans put on events every year out in the real world, not living in like YouTube land. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, we had the Houston Veg Fest, and I went along with my niece, and the place was like rammed. And those organisers put in like flipping, probably hundreds of hours to like organise that thing, and you can't turn around and say, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like nothing happens. Not in your world, but in the real world, people really put themselves out, dude. When I moved to Galveston 3 years ago, I started the Galveston Vegan Group, and on the Facebook page we've got like over 100 people, and we put on like an acoustic jam and a vegan potluck. I'm like, God, dude, we're getting like 40 flipping people now. It's really getting really popular, and it's a really good, fun thing. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. What are you doing? Get on YouTube. Get out in the real world.
Future of veganism.
So look carefully at the crowd shot and think about what he's just claimed, what he's just told you. The place was rammed. The place was rammed, was it? How many thousand people are in that crowd? How many hundred or how many dozens? He's not even aware of the extent to which he's lying. He doesn't question the extent to which his claims are really ridiculous and, in a sense, even quite tragic.
Come on. I'll tell you what, and it was rammed. That was so popular. It was so popular. Thousands of people.
And let's just refer back to the little bit he's told us about his autobiography. This guy is some kind of accomplished documentary filmmaker. I ended my video asking people to positively reach out to one another and collaborate. He never did that for me.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Bloody patronising, right?
He could have said, hey, I see you're a younger guy with a YouTube channel who cares about veganism, and he's an older guy who, under some circumstances, made at least one documentary film that played at least one documentary film festival. I don't know anything else with the rest of his career as a filmmaker. Maybe I really did have something positive to learn from him. Maybe he could have really helped me and help this YouTube channel. Maybe we could have worked together to do something really positive for the vegan movement and make the world a better place. But no, he can't react that way. He has to turn around and boast. He has to pridefully claim that these conferences where vegans just meet up and pat themselves on the back, where just a few hundred or a few thousand people show up and say, hey, let's all celebrate that we're changing the world. He has to claim that that's actually more efficacious and more important than my YouTube channel reaching 70,000 people a month with really in-depth, really substantive discussions. Much more substantive discussions than you're going to get from a street protest, from outreach, or even at these types of conferences and finger food festivals. But there's a lot of money in this here game. The moral of this story, sadly, is that veganism in the year 2020 is cash rich and talent poor. Millions and millions of dollars are being spent year after year. The money is being spent by the wrong people for the wrong reasons with the wrong motivations.